Today is July 16th and it's the day I'm going to glue up the keel. So I got all the boards cut and kind of laid out how I want to put them. So that's all set. I put a couple planks in the middle of the deck there on the underside of it so I'm not tripping over all those supports. So I can have like a gang plank there to get up there and move around and maneuver. I have a bunch of cement bricks and blocks to use as weights to hold down the keel after I glue it. And my plan is to pin it with these small brads that I have here. So I'm going to pin it with that. I'm going to pre-drill with this small little drill and bang it in with this hammer, and I got a nail set to get it a little bit below the surface. So I might get away with just the brads, but if not, I have all the bricks to weigh down the pieces that I need to put on each keel. So I'm going to mix up some epoxy, add some thickener, and I'm going to get right to it. So key is with fiberglass and resin is you've got to protect yourself from getting any on your skin, hence the gloves. And I got a box of 100, so I have 100 pairs, so that means I can just use these willy-nilly and throw them away when I need to. I got long sleeves on so I don't get any on my skin. I have rags here in case I have a spill and I get something on me. So we have the resin, hardener, and the filler. And I'm just going to use a regular plastic cup. So you do 1 pump of resin, 1 pump of hardener, 1 pump of resin, 1 pump of hardener. So you have to spin it up for at least a good minute. That's about where I want. Maybe a little more. I got a big gap to fill on my first piece, so now this is my next tablespoon. There we go. It's a little bit thinner than peanut butter. Kind of like in between mayonnaise and peanut butter. That's perfect. Okay. So I'm going to scrape the sides, make sure I get any residual powder off the edges. So now I'm ready to start applying this on the surface I'm going to laminate. So I ended up having to come up with a different way to clamp the hull pieces. What I ended up deciding on was to just use a screw. That way I could tighten it down and control the amount of squeeze out on either side of the board here. And then I took a fillet, or like a radius tool, and scraped the extra material so it made like a smooth transition between the hull and the keel. So I'm on my way to work. I just barely got all the work done I wanted to do with a couple minutes to spare, enough time to take a shower. So here's what happened. I wasn't able to use the bricks to weigh down the material because as I was drilling the hole, like a pilot hole, to put the brad in, as soon as I started tapping the brad, the bricks would shake, they'd shed dirt, and they'd fall over. And they were wider than the keel board, so when I went to go back in with my spatula and just kind of clean up the squeeze out, I just couldn't get in there because the brick was in the way. So I figured what I would do is I would continue to drill a hole through the keel board and into the hull, but use a sheetrock screw with a fine thread to connect the two pieces. That way I could adjust the amount of squeeze out by how much I tighten the screw with the screwdriver. So I could actually got a lot better control on how I had those keel boards up against the keel. And there were some areas that there was a pretty big gap, so I tried to add some extra bonding material in between there, but it was not really enough. So what I figured to do is I shoot the difference. I put a couple screws through that area, tighten it down to take up as much of that gap as I can, but not going too far that it's actually following the contour of that dip in the hull. So I figure I can split the difference on a subsequent keel board and kind of build it up that way. But it's much more controllable to use the screws instead of those bricks to weigh everything down. So I got the first layer of keel boards down on both sides. I have a was a fair amount of squeeze out on both sides, so I took a radius spatula tool and I made a fillet, so it kind of like came up like a nice curve up to that keel board. And when I glass over the keel board, fiberglass cloth does not like sharp corners. It likes a rolling radius. So that's going to accomplish two things. It's actually going to use the squeeze out to make the radius and make it more applicable for application of fiberglass cloth and resin over this keel once it's done. So I'm using the slow hardener. It's probably going to be cured completely when I get home from work. So what I'll do is I'll before I call it a night after I get out of work, I'll back off those screws. I'll mix up a batch of epoxy resin, backfill the screw holes that go through the keel board and through the hull, because that would be a source of leaks once the boat's in the water. So I'm going to fill those back in, and I'll go to bed, and in the morning I'll just sand that surface flat again, and I can apply the second layer of keel boards. I want to put 3 layers. I thought I would get all 3 done today, but I was over optimistic. That's fine. You got to kind of adjust your strategy as you go. But everything went well. I just had enough time to do what I wanted to do, at least to get the foundation down for each keel on both sides and get them filleted, and take a spatula and get any extra drips off the hull so I don't have to do as much sanding. So I'm very happy with the forward progress. I really didn't have enough time to film because everything was sticky and gooey, and I'm wearing gloves, and I just didn't want to ruin my camera or my movie equipment with sticky epoxy on everything. As it is now, I got it all over my screwdriver and my drill. But after that cures, that won't be sticky anymore. But it'll kind of like look kind of dirty because the dirt sticks to that kind of thing. So that's it for now. I'll do a little filming when I get home to kind of show the end result and fill everybody in on my progress. Tomorrow morning I'll put the second layer of keel boards on, and I'll use the same technique. I'll use the screws. I won't have to do any filleting because now I'm building up the second layer off the first layer. So it's coming along great. I think it's going to be a 3-day process. It's going to run into the weekend, but that's okay, because while I'm waiting for the second boards to dry, I have to do a little build up on the stern so I can make a motor mount. So there's some work I need to do there while it's flipped over. So I'll switch over to working on that while I'm waiting for the second layer of keel boards to dry. So good forward progress. I'm very happy with how it's going so far, and I'll keep you in the loop as things develop.